Today on the Saved Gen Z, I discuss pro-life activism on campus with Hannah Salomon-Vey.
Well, and the thing is, you can win a debate, but if you don't, win someone's heart and they see that you actually care for them, they could never imagine that you actually care for preborn children as well. We talk with students our age when we have imagery, when we have understanding of where they're coming from, where we're coming from. We really can make a difference and save preborn children's lives every day.
Hi and welcome to today's show. University campuses are known to be a hotspot for left-wing causes, which includes the pro-abortion movement. However, that doesn't mean that there are not forces fighting back against this movement with facts, logic, and compassion. And today, I'm joined with one of these people to have a discussion, and that is my good friend Hannah Salomon-Vey. Hannah has been a devout pro-life activist from a young age, and she has done many internships, including in Florida and here in Canada with the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform. She is also the newly elected president of the Western Lifeline Club. Before we get started with our discussion, please subscribe to the channel and consider hitting that notification bell. So, Hannah, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about pro-life activism on campus.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
How about we start off with you telling us a bit about yourself and why you are involved with pro-life activism?
Yeah, so my name is Hannah Salomon-Vey, and I'm a third-year piano performance student at Western, and I'm also the president of Western Lifeline, which is the pro-life club on campus. So in addition to being very passionate about music and performing and teaching and all that, I'm also very passionate about the pro-life movement. Through past internships I've done and working for the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform, and now being involved for coming on my third year with doing campus pro-life work, I've really seen what a difference it makes when young people like myself are involved in the pro-life movement. I've been very inspired by many people my age who are involved, changing hearts and minds every day. And it's incredible, when we talk with students our age, when we have imagery, when we have understanding of where they're coming from, where we're coming from, we really can make a difference and save preborn children's lives every day.
Yeah, very nice. So as you mentioned, you are the president of the Western Lifeline Club. Can you tell me a bit more about the club and what it does on campus?
Yeah, exactly. So I was involved for my first years on campus, and now I'm the president. And it's really amazing. We have wonderful opportunities on campus to reach out to students. So we have our weekly meetings where we have training, we have speakers come in, and so there's anywhere between 10 to 15 of us, or even sometimes 20 people that meet together who are very passionate students across all walks of life, many different programs, tons of medical students, nursing students, many philosophy students, music students come together who are all pro-life. We even have students coming that are kind of on the fence, not really sure they want to learn as well. We have club members who invite friends. So we have our weekly training meetings, and then every week, generally speaking, we have what's called tabling. So we have a table in the main student center where we get to have large images of ultrasound imagery at different stages of fetal development, and we get to have wonderful conversations with students about abortion, and have lots of opportunities to change their minds and have great discussions with them. And then off campus as well, I'm also involved with London Against Abortion. Many of my same friends from our club, we also do outreach on the streets of London as well, talking to university students off of campus.
That's really good. But unfortunately, sometimes universities aren't the most open places for causes that aren't this part of the left agenda. And I'm going to ask you a question based on that now. So pro-life clubs have been targeted by leftist student unions on some universities, including here at University of Ottawa. Is there anything that you'd like to say to student union members who want to shut pro-lifers down?
Yeah, so thankfully at Western, it's pretty good at Western. We have ratified club, and our environment there is a lot better than some other universities. That being said, so I would say freedom of speech and expression are incredibly important things. So it's not just for us; it's for
Yes.
everybody. And universities were created to be environments where
Hmm.
could be debated and challenged, and that really we could learn and be stretched intellectually, mentally, everything like that. So, if you exclude certain groups out of the debate, you really harm, the ability to have freedom of speech for everyone, including
Hmm.
someone of a more leftist perspective, as well. Their ability to speak will be harmed in the future, right? Because there'll be basically
Yes.
nobody left to have a discussion with, and they won't be able to have their viewpoints challenged. We won't be able to have ours challenged as well.
For sure, it's really important always to hear both sides and to make a worldview based on all the different opinions. So the vast majority of millennials are pro-choice. In your view, what is the best way to change people's hearts and make them understand the pro-life cause?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you mentioned an important point is their hearts, right? Because often, myself included, sometimes we're in a debate and we're just thinking about, I want to change this person's mind, but we really
Mhm.
want to understand where their heart is as well.
Yeah.
So there are many different simple pro-life tools that we use, and one of them is called heart apologetics, where we seek to
Yeah.
understand where they're coming from. So often, if I'm talking to someone who's very passionately pro-choice, I'll
Yeah.
ask them, where does your passion come from? What makes
Yeah.
you passionate about this issue? Or often I'll ask, do you know anyone who's had an abortion? Because often,
Hmm.
when we have 300 preborn children killed every day in Canada through abortion, they could have lost a sibling, through abortion. Their mother could have had an abortion. They could have had an abortion. I've talked to many people like that. So once I understand where they're coming from that way, I can understand where they're coming from intellectually as well. And the thing is, you
Hmm.
can win a debate, but if you don't, win someone's heart and they see that you actually care for them, they could never imagine that you actually care for preborn children as well.
That's a very good thing, and it's very good to be the whole apologetics thing and really getting to get people. That's how we have these conversations instead of just telling someone, you're wrong, I'm right. So, as you mentioned, earlier, a tactic that's often used by pro-life activists is to show people pictures of aborted babies. However, this is a controversial tactic, and most people do not want to see those pictures. So, why do you think that this tactic is effective or should be used?
Yeah, so excellent question. So on campus, we're not able to use abortion victim photography, which is like the actual images of aborted
Hmm.
children. We're able to use ultrasound imagery, and it's
Yeah.
fascinating when so many pro-choice people that I talk to, they're even offended by an image of an ultrasound, and yeah, I find it fascinating. Like if
Wow.
if your friend was pregnant, right, she would show you the ultrasound image, right, and so even if we can't use any imagery, I always ask students, have you seen what an ultrasound image looks like? And I'll ask them, like, what did you see? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, fingers, toes, eyes, right? And so I'm drawing the information out of them. But yeah, back to the imagery. All throughout history, the most effective social reform movements, including the abolition of the slave trade, human rights and justice against African American people, or child labor, um, having the imagery and showing the imagery of the abuses against these people was the big catalyst in changing the culture's mind, because you
Mhm.
can hear that something's wrong, but unless you see the images, you're not going to be able to have a full understanding of it. So basically,
Yeah. I was gonna say you're totally right on that. Like I've asked people, like I've seen a video of how an abortion performed. And when I talk to someone, I'm like, have you seen? They go in and they rip out the toes and then they rip out the body. And that is for sure something that's important for people to understand what exactly is going on behind those doors.
oh, exactly. And so it's only kind of in the pro-life communities that there's any debate about whether we should or should not use abortion victim
Mhm.
photography. And I want to make it clear, like, I think that imagery is horrible. And the fact that, I'm disgusted by it and everyone else generally is a sign that there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
And so when someone says to me, oh, that image is very awful, and I will agree with them, like 100%, it is so awful. And I said, if
Hmm.
we're both not okay with seeing this image, why are, you and I okay with having this injustice happening here in Canada? And that often really gets them thinking. But amongst the pro-choice community, there's no debate in their minds of, whether this imagery is effective. They hate it and want to suppress it, because, when you show the truth, then it changes people's hearts and minds. And the truth is always the enemy of, anybody or any group that's trying to, promote an injustice.
Absolutely. So I do want to challenge now your pro-life belief. So the a common pro-choice argument, which is kind of a good argument, is that if you ban abortion, you only remove safe abortion. People are still going to have abortions, in back alleys, and people will make profit off it. So, what would you say would be a good way to try to reduce abortion rates while still making sure that people who are determined to have one have a safe abortion?
Right. So I was actually having this conversation with someone yesterday while I was doing activism here in London, and he,
Hmm.
brought up the same question. And sometimes I'll go in and talk about the laws. Other times I will say that, regardless of whether something is legal or illegal, if people don't know what it looks like and they don't know that it's wrong, they'll still want to have it. And so I will, talk about why we want to change the culture's mind because, abortion is completely legal here in Canada. We don't have any legal
No
safeguards
laws.
whatsoever.
The only democracy with no laws.
Right. So yeah, so then it's completely legal, and people are
Yeah.
having abortions. That being said, if abortion becomes completely illegal and we don't have the culture's minds and hearts are not shifted, then we could still have the same amount of abortions. And I would also, something I could use for a more intellectual conversation to push back a bit is that if we know that murder is wrong, right?
Mhm.
Should we say that, oh, if we, I mean, and obviously, murder is illegal, but some people could
Yeah.
say, if murder was legal, that if we ban murder, then people will commit murder and like many other
Yeah, that's true.
worse ways and stuff like that. So as long as something is wrong, that whether it's legal or illegal, or we make it illegal, that doesn't mean that that's wrong. The practice is wrong, and we want to change people's hearts and minds so that they can understand that.
For sure. That's a very good point. So earlier you were talking about, discussing abortion with women who've had abortion. So you obviously know someone who's had an abortion. What's your reaction when, people tell you that they've had this procedure?
Right. And going back to what I said about, making sure that people that we talk to, that they know that we care for them. And we're not just there to like, just, change their mind or debate with them. So yes, one of my very close friends had an abortion. And, through my conversations with her, I've been able to, have, insight into a little bit into what it's like. And, when
Hmm.
women have regret from abortion. So that's given me a lot of empathy for that. Yeah, if I'm talking to someone and they tell me that they've had an abortion, I will like briefly just stop talking about like, the issues of whether it's right or wrong or, fetal development
Yeah.
like that, and just focus on asking them how they are, if they're okay, have they gotten, proper, help and counseling and support, and just to really check in with them and show them that I care for them. And then if it's
Mm.
appropriate, I might go back to the conversation, but showing empathy and care, and then I'm actually listening to them to hear how they're doing instead of just listening to them so I can, have a conversation or debate.
Yeah. That's a very good answer. And that's a Christian thing to do too, like empathy and love. And the whole movie Unplanned, this was not a judgmental movie. It was a movie about love and acceptance. And a lot of pro-life activists have had abortions too. So, and when they go on stage at the March for Life and they've said we've had abortion, people don't boo them
Right.
because it's all about empathy. So that's a really good response. So the Ontario government under Kathleen Wynne had put in place quote unquote bubble zones, which basically would put people in jail for protesting abortion near an abortion clinic, or also there are sometimes pro-life activists that will try to, have conversation with women
Yeah.
before they go in, just to inform them, in a non-harassing way, just out of kindness. And that actually has saved a lot of lives. But now that is legal and you can go to jail for doing that. So how do you think basically we can protect women from being harassed while also protecting people's rights to protest?
Right. So, I mean, I am not that much like that tremendously like involved with understanding bubble zones and stuff like that because here in Canada we just kind of stay away from abortion clinics and more
Yeah,
to like downtown areas or university campuses like where a very high
yeah,
majority of people are having abortions. That being said, Aid to Women in Toronto is actually right next door to an abortion clinic. So
yeah,
they even hear the abortions going up the stairs and all that for the abortion procedure, but because they're next door, sometimes the women go in the wrong door or they go there intentionally. So we're always referring women there for help and support for unplanned pregnancies.
yeah.
But I think often though, like the media can kind of distort of like what pro-life people who are, standing near abortion clinics are doing. They can, make them seem, unkind or angry. And obviously there's some Christians who kind of get a little to focus on, abortion is wrong, it's a murder and stuff like that. But I think we really need to focus on compassion and caring for women. And when I did an internship in Florida, a pro-life internship in Florida, there are no bubble zones outside of abortion clinics in Florida. So we had the opportunity to stand outside and pray outside an abortion clinic in Florida and hold, pregnant need help signs and stuff like that. And it was unbelievably, gutting, seeing a woman going in, and one of my colleagues talked to her mother, and her mother didn't want her to have the abortion, and, she wasn't able to contact her. And by the time her daughter came out, her baby was killed. And at the same time, though, a woman saw our sign and she turned around and asked for help, and we were able to connect her with important resources. So I would say, especially outside of abortion clinics, it's really important to show compassion, and that there are resources and help, and that Christians and pro-life people truly care about the woman and her child, not only at that minute to save them from the abortion clinic, but to give them help and resources afterwards to ensure that they can thrive.
That is really important, because another pro-choice argument is you only want to save the baby, and then you're just gonna throw her outside and not care. But no, that's not the case. And there's a lot of great resources for women that have an unplanned pregnancy. They do not have to choose to kill this baby. There are so many resources out there that a lot of them I don't think they know a lot about. So let's finish off with a question about faith. You're obviously a devoted Christian. Can you share with us how your faith has guided you in your life, and what your favorite Bible verse is?
So like you said, I'm a born again Christian, and I'm very passionate about my faith. And I was raised in a Christian home, and it wasn't though until I was 16 that I really took hold of my faith, and I would say
Me too.
born again, and understood that God had a plan for my life. And so that has impacted every area of my life. I understand that you can understand human rights from a secular perspective as well, but going back to the root of human rights all comes because we're created in the image of God. And so that really informed not only my passion for my work and my university studies, but my marriage, and also my pro-life work, and understanding that everybody I talk to, no matter how angry or pro-choice they might be, that they are created in God's image and they have worth and value. As well, as preborn children, from the moment of conception to natural death. And I would say, on the topic of abortion, the verse that really inspires me is Proverbs 24, verse 4. Rescue those who are being taken away to death. Hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter. So that's something that really inspires me to keep going, and continue to make a difference here in Canada for preborn children with all of my colleagues and friends at university.
That's really good. So Hannah, I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing this with me. It was a great interview, and I hope that you'll have the best of luck when the school year starts again, now as president of Western Lifeline.
Thank you so much. It was a huge honor, and I'm very proud of your channel and everything that you're doing for the conservative, pro-life movement here in Canada.
I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like it and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to learn more about Western Lifeline, there'll be a link to their website in the description. Stay tuned for more great interviews, discussions, and videos. Thank you, and God bless you.